Hello and welcome to the March 2024 monthly video series. My name is Mike Horwath. I am the Chief Investment Officer here at Diversified. In the theme of March Madness, I thought today would be a good idea to talk about the Magnificent Seven stocks. Why them? And how does that have to do with March Madness? Well, I think if you're thinking about it in the sense of who are the clear-cut number one seeds of the market, it's the Magnificent Seven. So let's start off. What does that even mean? The best way to think about the Mag 7, short, right, for magnificent, Mag 7, the 3 A's, the 2 M's, the N, and the T. So you got Apple, you got Alphabet and Amazon, the 3 A's. You got the 2 M's, Meta and Microsoft, and you got Nvidia and Tesla. They're names that everybody knows, right? These are the biggest, baddest companies in the US, right? Primarily technology focused, although they may fall into communication services or consumer discretionary type of businesses. But in the end, they're very tech focused, very large, cash flow heavy, very profitable businesses that have grown substantially over time. And I think turning attention to why has everybody really talked about the Mag 7 and why are they so special? And I think when you really decompose what's happened in the markets over the course of the last year and a half, call it 15 months, right? Going back to the beginning of 2023, markets are up, they've rebounded well, they're hitting all-time highs. So largely you think, oh, the market is doing well. And in some cases you can make that argument, but when you really decompose what's happened, the top 10 names, especially these top 7 names of the Magnificent Seven, have driven so much of the return. When you exclude those 7 names, the returns look very different, right? And when you look at the small cap world versus the large cap world, returns look very different. So let's look at a couple graphs here that I think really illustrate the point of why everybody wants to talk about the Mag 7 and what they really have done to the markets. You can see not only have returns of the top 10 names of the S&P 500 far outpaced the rest of the market, you see their contributions to earnings have continued to remain pretty strong. Here's the concern is their weighting in the S&P 500 of these top 10 names, right? Or if you just include the Mag 7, you can really make the case either way. It has become extremely concentrated at the top. Every once in a while, we see markets go into these types of cycles where the top 10, top 15, top 20 names of the market, they'll always be some of the biggest names. They will be the biggest names given the market cap weighting, but they've become extremely concentrated. The top 10 names of the S&P 500 make up over 30% of the index, right? Very concentrated into just a few businesses, very profitable. You can see by their earnings contribution, they are a big piece of the earnings conversation. But the reality is that these names have become very concentrated and they have driven much of the market sentiment, much of the market return. If you think back to 2023, we've talked about this multiple times. Nvidia had a massive year. And we all talk about, artificial intelligence and the rise of what Nvidia does with their processors as a semiconductor business and the profitability and how much their both top and bottom line growth has increased. But in the end, right, it has become a very concentrated market, and I think that's something just really important to remember. If we kind of reverse back to 2023, I think it's an important graphic to see, when we talk about 2023 and markets up over 20%, let's take the Mag 7 names and let's remove them from the market. And you can see, especially through October, right, the last 2 months of the year, we saw a little bit of normalizing where the rest of the market caught up a little bit. But through October, it was not even close in terms of what drove markets. The Mag 7, the Magnificent 7 names were, our number one seeds on our bracket for the market had killed it for the year and have driven much of the return. So those who diversified away from a cap-weighted index really just diversified away into asset classes that underperformed those 7 names, right? Or those top 10 names if you want to expand beyond the Mag 7 names of the S&P 500. Very concentrated market. Very unusual. The question then becomes, are markets, and especially those names, overvalued? When you see them drive returns as much as they have, right, and become such a big component of markets, are they overvalued? And I read a great article and I thought he did a really good job. The NYU Dean of Valuation, his name's Aswath Damodaran, He does a really good job breaking down valuations and trying to estimate the true value of businesses. And he did this for the Max 7 names. Naturally, it's you see them return what they have. You see what markets have done. You say, man, they have to be really, really overvalued. And I think what you find across the board is when you look in that red box, it depends. Many of the businesses are well within his range of estimated valuation. Now, valuation is not a perfect exercise, right? There's always projections. And if you really look, NVIDIA is an example of one that he does believe is quite overvalued. And he'll be very honest. A big piece of that is because he may be underestimating the power of artificial intelligence. And he'll make a joke about it. Maybe he's just not creative enough to think about how big that business can be. But in the end, you do see that they are a little bit overvalued. But much of it's warranted, based upon their earnings growth, their margins, their ability to stay as profitable as they have. And they've done a very good job over the course of the last really 15 months as they've taken off. So as we look forward, like I said, for markets, and we're kind of keeping this theme of March Madness, my favorite time of the year, what does that mean for the rest of the market? Because you have over here these number one seeds, the most powerful businesses in the US, in the world. Where are the opportunities? Where are the framing of the bracket? Where are the Cinderella stories that we can imagine that can make a Final Four run as a 12 seed, right? And as we think about that for markets, we really think about a couple areas. One, we think small cap has the ability to really start to drive returns. It's been an area that has just underperformed large cap, and the reality is most of it's driven by the fact that they've been beaten down a little bit more over the course of this interest rate cycle. And we've also seen earnings growth take a little bit of time to recover. But we think small cap is an area where you can see some value for investors moving forward, right? Diversifying a little bit away from large cap, going down the capital spectrum, down to small cap stocks here in the US. Dividend paying stocks, right? We've talked about this theme of quality. Dividend focused equities, right? Ones that have paid consistent dividends tend to be a little concentrated in some sectors, but we think a broad diversified portfolio of dividend focused equities with their high quality in a time where interest rates are a little higher and may remain a little higher for the time going forward here. Good opportunity for investors to look for just some value outside of the biggest tech names, biggest growth names in the world from an equity perspective. And lastly, can international stocks recover? I think to me this would be the bigger Cinderella story. We aren't super bullish on international equities right now. We do see opportunities in pockets and specific types of equities or sectors or geographic areas. But I think by and large, the strength of the US dollar, the quality and strength of the US economy right now just lean us towards the US equities that we have in our portfolios over international equities. But I think that would be our order in terms of Cinderella stories. We like small cap equities. We think dividend focused equities have a chance to make a little run here. And international equities would be much more of a Cinderella story, but something certainly to keep an eye on as we move forward. But I hope this was helpful in terms of what it looks like in the Magnificent Seven world, the Mag 7 world, and why everybody keeps talking about them. Everybody knows these companies, the names, what they mean. A lot of you use Facebook, Amazon, but at the end of the day, there's a reason why they've performed as well as they have. And the question is, where we are today looking forward, are they reasonably valued? We think they're okay. And what are the opportunities that we can diversify to maybe take some of those gains off the table, which we think small cap dividend focused stocks are a potential area, and to a much, much lesser extent, international equities. But as always, thank you for joining us here today on the monthly video series for March 2024. Look forward to catching up here in April as we go through our quarterly investment review, and you'll see my newsletter coming out soon. Take care.